Welcome to Atsuko Women's History Month Anime Industry Panel. I'm your host, Karen Mahorn, aka The Blurred Girl, and I am thrilled that you're joining us. I have an incredible group of women joining me, so I'm going to introduce them one at a time. This is the embarrassing part where I read everybody's bio. So I'm going to start with you, Sophia. Sophia Alexander is a Mexican immigrant, creator, and executive producer of the Crunchyroll originals Onyx Equinox. She currently is working in development for Disney TV animation, and she's worked on Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, Cartoon Network's Powerpuff Girls, Hasbro's Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters, Nickelodeon's Invader Zim, Enter the Florpus, and so much more. Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next up, we have Yaya Han. Now, if you don't know who Yaya is, you've been living under a rock, because Yaya is a professional cosplayer, designer, and author. A household name in fandom, Yaya has made over 385 costumes, appeared as a guest at hundreds of events all over the globe, and been featured in 2 US network TV shows. Yaya is the first cosplayer to create a cosplay-focused fabric line for Joanne Fabric craft stores, and the first to design cosplay patterns for McCall Patterns, a major pattern company. Her new book, Yaya Han's World of Cosplay, is available in North America now. Welcome, Yaya.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I've been traveling to all these conventions, but not now.
I know, right?
We're not traveling
right now.
anymore.
We're not traveling, right? Next up, we have voice actress Dani Chambers. Now, Dani is an actress that's been on stage ever since she was 6 years old and began performing voiceover work in 2013. Dani has a background in theater and short film and has been featured on Harima as Takako Nishi, My Hero Academia Heroes Rising as Mahoro Shimano, Dr. Stone as Shovel, and of course, The Ancient Magus' Bride as Chise Hattori. Welcome, Dani.
Hi, thank you for having me.
What's great about this is every one of you are sort of covering a different area of anime and animation. But let's go back to when you were simply a fan. So what was your gateway anime? Yaya, I'm going to start with you.
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in China, and my first, it was like 2 during one summer. Saint Seiya, which is like epic shonen, bloody battle, and Sailor Moon. So I covered the gamut, and I think it was the 2 of them were just like life-changing, mind-blowing.
That's awesome. How about you, Sophia? What was your gateway anime?
It was actually Saint Seiya. I was too young. I was too young for it.
Right?
I was like 6 years old or something. I saw Seiya being like blinded and everything and all the blood, and I was just kind of like, okay, I grew up in Mexico, so it's like they're like huge anime fans, and so like that, along with Arale or Dr. Slump, I believe in English, Mikan, which is about like a cute cat that like has little adventures, and it's just I've been an anime fan for a little bit.
How about you, Dani? What was your gateway anime?
Mine was, I have 2. It's Tenchi Muyo and Sailor Moon. Those are the 2 that I just constantly watched.
That's awesome. Mine was Ghost in the Shell, the second movie. But what was funny was I didn't know that's what I was watching. It was one of those things where I had friends who would just get DVDs. I'm not going to say how they got them, but
The olden times.
And so things might start in the middle. So I didn't know what I was looking at. And then something else funny happened to me after that. I the next time I saw it, Ghost to the Shell, it was actually the standalone complex was on Adult Swim. And it was like the second season. So I started in the middle, and that was like, that's it. And I went all the way back to the beginning. I watched the movies. I read the manga. I was like
doing it right.
Right. And then I was in. So it's really interesting to me that we're having this conversation as women about the medium, because rarely are we talking about like female characters. Can you name some of your favorite female characters and why they resonated with you? It doesn't matter whether or not this was your first female character that you liked, or just one that you're a stand for?
I guess Sailor Mars, she was the first one that resonated with me because like, you know, she was like an Aries and she had the fire signs. She was basically me, but a magic girl. And then over the years, like if you're talking old school anime, it's like Misato Katsuragi from Evangelion, or like probably the one that I always go back to is Cheryl from Macross Frontier. And just because she is, not enough people appreciate the Macross universe, and Cheryl is just, you know, everything that I think a female character can embody. She's just super independent and not defined by men, but she still, you know, can have romantic relationships, also like friendship with other females, and be a, you know, celebrity idol, but also be really down to earth and a big sister. I'm just like, love Cheryl.
Now, Danny, you grabbed your heart when you clutched your pearls when she said Evangelion. Was that your pick?
One of them. I love Misato. I did. Gosh, I rewatched it with my boyfriend earlier, a couple months ago, and I was like, I forgot how much I love Misato.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny you mentioned Sailor Moon again, yeah, because Sailor Jupiter was my girl. I loved.
She was your girl.
Yeah, she was strong and tall and kind of awkward, and I was like, oh, that's me. You know, so it's like I resonated with her in that fact, but she was strong and she wasn't afraid to be strong. So I really resonated with that because I felt like I couldn't be strong because of being a woman or being my size. But she's like, no, heck no. So I was like, yes, I want to be like you.
Now, how about you, Sophia? What female character resonated with you?
Oh man. For me, if we're gonna talk Sailor Moon, for me it was
yes.
Rei.
Which one is your
yes.
yes.
I liked Rei. Fire, I always loved like fire elements, and like she was like unapologetic about being strong, and you know, basically what Yaya said, like she was a great character. I love Asta from Trinity Blood, again, like another fierce female character, you know, and like all her outfits were beautiful, and I'm like, wow, like that's goals. My girl is Sakura from Cardcaptors. Like I was like, she had like brown hair and green eyes, and I had brown hair and green eyes, and it's like, finally, you know, like yeah. I mean, this one is not like an anime kind of anime because she's from a video game, but Zelda has, like, Princess Zelda has always been like a favorite character of mine. And from Evangelion, because I feel like I have to mention, is Atsuko. So
yes. Yes.
I love her. So most of the characters that I love are very fiery and, you know, just unapologetically strong, which is something that it's really hard to achieve, like especially like in an industry that's so predominantly male. So
it is, and it's interesting. I do have a question to ask about the strong female characters. Have you noticed that the women that are supposed to be strong and authoritative have deeper voices and bigger boobs? Like, is it just me, or am
Naga from Slayers?
Oh my God, that's a callback. Yes,
Slayers is also one of my favorite anime. So I always wanted to be Naga, but I was like, I was Lena, you know. I super short and loved food.
So when did you know that you could have a career in anime? And it's completely different for all three of you. So first say what your career is, and then tell us when you realized, oh, wait, I could actually make money doing this.
I do voice acting. I'm a voice actress. I knew this would be a big career move when I booked my first workshop for anime. It forced me to do more research about it and made me take it seriously, like more serious, I guess, and to go after it, because I mean, you know, there's tons of you know, women in anime, but you know, as a woman of color, I was like, I kind of want to make a difference in that too, so why not? Let's go for it. And I was like, I'm going to make it my career. I want to be an inspiration and do it. And so knowing that, going into that and then booking my first role with it, I was like, yes, I can do this. I know this is it.
So Sophia, I'm going to ask you, because you directed and a whole series. So and you did that in conjunction with Crunchyroll. I'm a huge fan of Onyx Equinox, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much.
When did you go from, you know what, I'm not just going to be a fan, I'm going to actually create this? And what was the inspiration?
Oh man. Well, I guess I should start with like what gave me like the final like I can do this like as a profession. Which was it was well into college. And I attended just one art class, and the teacher was like, you should really look into animation. And I was like, that's not a thing. He was like, yeah. So that is kind of like what pushed me into applying to the college that I went to. And as for Onyx, the idea was created when I was in college, my first year for art school. So the teacher asked like, hey, create some characters and a story for an assignment. And it was supposed to be like a very small thing. And that's when I created Izel, Yaotl, and Nelly, his sister. And they just kind of became characters that I went back to for every assignment, really. And then by the end of college, I had a story, I had more characters, I had a world, I was doing research already. And they actually asked us for that assignment, like, hey, you should pitch that story to editors. And Tokyo Pop wanted to pick it up, but something in my heart told me like, no, wait, just wait. You can do something else with it. It's not time. So I did wait, and it took me until 2018 to get it done, like 11 years later, So wow. It's yeah, I mean, creating a show it's very different from like being a storyboard artist, because you're the showrunner, you're the producer, you're directing art, storyboards, music, everything that you see on screen, I had a say on. And well, they deferred to me unless executives felt very strongly about something. But yeah, it's a dream, and to this day I still kind of go like, oh my gosh, this is something that actually happened.
Yeah, I remember when they dropped the first 3 episodes, and I was like, okay, so where are the rest? You're not going to leave us like this. I need to know what happened.
This story is very personal. It's not just about Mexico and cultures that are usually not represented in a fair way, in a human way. Most of the times, Mesoamerica is like the beating heart in the hand and the just like over gratuitous blood and violence. And you don't really see us as people. It's Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a Mexican voice to tell our story. So even though it was made here in the US, it's a Mexican cartoon because a Mexican woman led it.
So Yaya, I gotta ask, when did you know, like, hey, fandom funding, like I can put these together?
Okay, so cosplay was not considered an industry until like maybe only 5-6 years ago. Like cosplay has always been a fan activity, and I grew up watching anime, and when I discovered conventions, it was like, oh my god, now I can live out my fandom dreams as a fan. And cosplay for the longest time was truly a labor of love. And even though like at some point, maybe in the mid 2000s, I was starting to get people requesting for me to make costume pieces for them, and props and accessories and whatever. Like I was still attending conventions, as a fan who somehow is like trying to edge her way into this industry. Like, it's very interesting to sort of almost like change the perception that the public has about cosplay, a purely fan activity, into something of value for the industry, and for cosplay to be eventually perceived as a valid art form and a valid entertainment form. So for me, when I decided to quit my job to, basically do costume commissions full time, it was not with a career in mind. It was just, how can I stay in this world? Like, I don't want to get a normal job again, because I at that point had worked a very boring office job, my very first one, and is like where creativity went to die. And I was just like, how can I stay just here? How can I just do this and go to more conventions and see more people and make more costumes? And so I was just doing whatever I could to be in this space. So I quit my job in 2005 and was basically a starving artist for a long time, with, like, even when I made convention appearances, which at that point I was already starting to be a judge and be a panelist and, a cosplay guest, but I wasn't being paid for it. Like every other industry guest was receiving some kind of compensation or had like signing chances, to have some kind of an income at the convention. I was in the artist alley at tables that I bought myself, or where like the only thing that I could negotiate was like a little table in like the corner of a room, because I was a cosplayer, so I was a fan. I was not an industry professional. But I just like loved being, here. I did not want to live a normal life. So it just like, and there was more and more demand for cosplayers, because conventions started realizing that cosplay actually was, entertaining, that people actually came to conventions just to cosplay, or that seeing cosplayers at, in their hallways brightened up the convention so much and made it so much more fun, and that it's worth to invest in cosplay programming. So I will say that even though like I had, basically had cosplay as my sole purpose form of income for several years, it wasn't until I got on the sci-fi show Heroes of Cosplay in 2013 that I kind of realized, okay, so now maybe it could be a career.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, like, now I'm very proud of how far the cosplay community has come and how much we've been able to really carve out a space for ourselves in fandom and show that like you can make a career out of either teaching people how to make costumes, motivating them, or being an entertainer for the public as a cosplayer. So it's been a long road.
Yes, you were the first cosplayer I saw that had a booth and paid signings. Has anybody ever commissioned you to cosplay or create a cosplay for a character that is new, or for a new anime that's coming out?
It's like so weird to say, but my career was advanced enough that when companies were starting to get interested in hiring cosplayers to promote their shows or their video games or whatever, my career was already too advanced for that. I was like doing, product development and product design for, like global companies and such. And I was writing my book and such. And so it's like, I just could never accept those gigs. Like I wanted to, I would see like my other cosplay friends, represent a new character, and being able to like promote an anime that I love. And I'm like, I want to do it. But I was like traveling so much and had such a hectic schedule that there just would never be time to be like, all right, let me just stop everything for a whole month and like make this costume and go to this like whatever promotional tour and go to this event. And like there was just never the chance for that. So like I finally did a gig for Riot Games, which is not an anime company, but also in fandom. But Riot hired me to make the new Vayne costume, which is one of their characters, and sort of kick off the 2021 season of League of Legends. And so that was like really awesome. And I was just like, yes, finally I get to like make something for a company and represent a character. But yeah, like I think it's fantastic that these days there are all kinds of opportunities for cosplayers to be recognized by the creators and by the companies that, you know, have inspired them to like do this and have the chance to actually, you know, promote the source material. So like I think it's great. I hope I get to do that with an anime in the future. Like I just did like a white blood cell cosplay from Cells at Work because I'm just so obsessed with Code Black. And I was like, I don't even care that like, you know, no one paid me to do this, but I'm gonna tell everybody to go watch Cells at Work and I'm gonna post these pictures. You know?
Honestly, I just started Cells at Work like a month ago, and I'm like, all of you are fired for not telling me about this anime.
Dude, it's so good.
It is. So you just said this, Yaya, how much the cosplay industry has changed. Now, the anime industry has changed also. Now anime is mainstream. And is it just me or has it blown up during the pandemic? Because I feel like everybody on TikTok just figured out what it was like last year. It's very odd. So as the anime industry continues to, you know, grow in the West, what are some of the changes that you are witnessing, both good and bad?
I think some of the good changes are the fact that more people are experiencing it, and it gives them an opportunity to kind of relate to different characters, to relate to their stories, because they feel like their stories aren't being told. So I think there's a lot of more shows that are telling their side, their kind of stories, and it relates to them a lot, so they feel like they can express themselves a bit more and find people who they relate to within the community as well. And I think that's a really big deal, because people who were, you know, closed off, who loved, you know, anime, can't really express themselves either. But now that it's been being open freely to a lot more people who didn't even know this kind of like culture existed, they can kind of like come together and realize that, hey, we're not so different. We like the same thing. We have the same story. So it kind of unites people together who you never thought could be united. And I think some bad things are people who, what was the term for it? Keeps them from coming in because
gatekeeping.
Yes. Goodness.
Gatekeepers.
I don't hate a lot of things. I don't like to call myself a hateful person. But when people keep other people from enjoying something, especially where it could help them reach other people, that ticks me off. And I think because of that, I think a lot of people who were secretly gatekeepers kind of like came out in the open because the pandemic, and people realized anime's, you know, cool. There's a whole culture and community behind it. They I guess it's like they feel like they own it, and it seems like they're the ones who are allowed to say, you can be an anime fan, you cannot. And I feel like it's an entitlement, I guess, just because they've seen it the longest, which shouldn't even matter. But that's like one of the, honestly, the biggest thing that I've seen is the gatekeeping. So hopefully that will change as you know, people come together and kind of talk it out and actually just share the love of anime instead of hoarding it.
Sophia, what do you feel are some of the good and bad changes that you've seen in anime's move into the West?
Well, I feel that the biggest first move was when Avatar: The Last Airbender came out, because that was very heavily inspired in anime. And I feel like it opened people's eyes and minds to how the potential of a story, and not just visually, but also the tone. Because America, rather just the West, is very focused on cartoons being for kids. And there's a huge gap between 7 to 11, and then there's sitcoms for adults like Rick and Morty and Family Guy. There's nothing in between. So there's a huge market that is not being hit, a huge demographic of people who will watch and who want to watch cartoons aimed at them, from different tones and different themes and different plots and characters, and just a variety of storytelling that they only find in anime. So the good thing is that now that it's becoming more mainstream, it's being valued more in cartoons that are coming out nowadays. So you have OKKO, Steven Universe, you name it. There's a bunch of cartoons who take inspiration from anime. Luckily, I did not experience the gatekeepiness of anime fans. I think it's because I'm in a different community that where we have just a bunch of animation nerds and creators who are like, I love anime. The bad is that there's still some sort of like old way of thinking, let's put it that way, in what cartoons should be and who it should be catered to. So cartoons like Dragon Prince and Avatar, they hit certain things, certain tones that it's still for kids, but Steven Universe, it hits certain things tonally that, you know, adults can appreciate, because we would see, for example, in Infinity Train, which I worked for, Tulip goes through her parents' divorce, and like the emotional journey of it, the psychological journey of it, of a kid having to do introspection and kind of go, okay, it's not so clean cut, it's not black and white, it's a lot more complex than this. That is the kind of stuff that I want to see more in the industry, and I want animation to be taken as an actual art form, as a way of telling stories instead of just being for kids. Which, don't get me wrong, I love cartoons. It's just when there is a lack of something, that's when you're like, we need to push for that.
Yeah, and for the record,
there was.
For the record, I don't think Onyx is for little kids.
No. I was gonna say.
Anybody
Onyx,
watching this, Onyx is for grown folks.
Yeah, no, it's when it comes to Onyx, I wanted to cater to an adult demographic, because there's, again, it's only sitcoms. BoJack Horseman, which I love, Family Guy, South Park, that's the adult. And people kind of consider cartoons like funny and interesting when it's kind of raunchy and then like, you know, offensive, which, you know, to each their own. But again, the Castlevanias and the Blood of Zeus of the world, they don't exist here. Like it's very few and far between. So that's why adding Onyx to that was very exciting for me. Awesome. Here's me hoping that we get to see other stories like Dragon Prince, or more Castlevanias, like just different storytelling with different tones that will hit different demographics in order to really unify animation as an art form, rather than it's just for this or that.
Yeah. I think you have a unique perspective because you were not born in the US. You said earlier you were born in China. So seeing how anime is translated, I don't mean literally translated, I mean like just interpreted over here. And what are some of the good and the bad things that you're seeing or that you feel about the genre?
I think just Asia is just so much further advanced in integrating anime and animation and also illustration like into their lives. I think like that's the biggest difference. Like Japan and China, they have, you know, Korea and other Asian countries as well. They have such long histories of just telling stories to pictures. And like here in the West, especially in America, it's just like, yeah, like people just don't see anything that is drawn really as made for the general public. It's like if it's drawn, it has to be for children. You know, maybe it's like Disney. You know, the long influence of Disney and whatever. Like that's just how the culture here in the West sees animation. And whenever I go to Japan or go back home to China, I'm just like, yeah, this is like it's just a part of it, you know, like it's in your instruction manuals for, you know, the new rice cooker that you buy, or it's, you know, like, you know, traffic sign, you know, like traffic construction sites notices or whatever. So like I definitely hope, like, I think it's great how much the West has accepted anime and embraced it in the recent few years. And of course, that has a lot to do with the streaming networks making anime widely available, and like things being actually properly translated and properly voiced, by different wonderful talents like Danny. So like, I think that's really important. It's like, you have to make it relatable to your audience. And for a long time, I don't think the Western anime industry really had the budget and like the recognition to be able to do that. Like, I really feel there were many people wanting to advance anime, but because of the way that it was consumed and how difficult it was to, get the point of anime across, like, I think there were just many roadblocks. And I just want to say one thing about fandom before we move on, is that social media has changed everything for like every fandom industry, just like how fandom is consumed and how fandom is talked about. Like, the new Evangelion movie is coming out. We can't see it over here. So like, what do? You like, everybody in Japan is freaking out about it. But it's like, things are being like, as things are being made, you as fans can speculate, you can, have your opinion about it. Everybody has an opinion about everything. So it's like, it is difficult to sometimes fit in to the new fandom because it is so huge. And in cosplay as well, like, it's so great that cosplay is so well known now, but now we have lots of issues, or a lot of issues are coming to the surface about diversity or the lack thereof, or Black cosplayers and the harassment that they face. And so it's like, being a fan, because it's so visible now, is more difficult than maybe when it was like the 90s.
You made a point, that was very interesting. In animation, I can tell you that the reason why anime was not very accessible was because the US has the means to create its own content. So why would they need to buy the rights for other things? Whereas in Mexico, we were like, we want to buy the rights to distribute cartoons and Scooby-Doo and Flintstones and whatever, but it was really expensive. And Japan was like, we want to sell. We need to sell. And the US didn't want it because we create our own. And Mexico was like, please give us anything. So that's why to this day, Mexico is like one of the number one, if not the number one, consumer of anime here in the Americas. So that's at least my perspective of it, as to why it became even more difficult for it to be brought here. It's not so much people being like, yeah, it's more of a, why should I buy something I already have?
Yeah.
And have the control to what stories to tell for our culture.
I just learned something there, Sophia. Thank you. I didn't even think about what is accessible to different people. I didn't even think about that. I completely agree that social media has changed everything. In fact, I learn about new anime because I now follow Genka, the artists that are drawing the Genka. I will see it and I'm going, wait, I didn't see that on Jujutsu Kaisen. What's that? And I'll know that's the artist that's sharing something that dropped maybe in Japan before it dropped here. We couldn't do that before.
Oh gosh.
I didn't know what a Genka was before. One thing that's good is like again, these concepts of diversity and things like that. Like when Ogun showed up on Fire Force, I think I yelled. I think I hollered. Danny's having and then I yelled again when I found out who his voice was. Danny knows what I mean by that. But also I think some of the bad is, Sophia, you were talking about the US doesn't want to buy it because they can't make it. So what are they trying to do? Live action remakes, which they need to stop doing.
God. Oh God, please stop.
No idea.
So, I told you Ghost in the Shell was one of my favorites, right?
Oh God.
The things that I was screaming at my television. Yeah. Also, Death Note. but I'll even say the live action remake of Airbender.
Oh,
We don't talk about that. What do you
That
mean?
doesn't exist. What are you talking about?
Oh,
we don't know her.
It's not a complete remake, but you can consider Inception
Okay.
Paprika. I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's
yes.
true.
Yes.
It's true.
You're
Yes.
so
No, you're right. Yeah.
Has anybody ever heard the term Amerime?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd never heard of this until about basically a week ago. So apparently things like Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Or Onyx.
even Onyx, right? Even Last Prince as American anime, it's not truly anime because it wasn't created in Japan.
So tequila is not tequila unless it's made in Mexico. Is that what everyone is saying?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, as like as somebody who's from China, like there's anime in China, there's manga in China,
Manhwa.
Yeah.
like Korean manhwa as well. Like it's whatever. Anime is anime, you know.
I don't mind people calling Onyx cartoon, anime, whatever, so long as people want to watch it and enjoy it, that's great. Anime fans will see my nod and like it, to the inspiration that I took from anime. Some people will be like, this is not true anime. And you know what? I don't really care. Kuni Tomita, she is my supervising director. She's a Japanese woman. She has worked on so many things in TMS. She even worked on American cartoons that were animated in Japan. A lot of people don't even know that a lot of things are animated in Japan. So that will technically make it an anime.
As long as we don't have a live action version with Scarlett Johansson, I'm fine.
Oh my God.
Call it whatever you want.
She was gonna be the main character, a 13-year-old Native American Mexican boy. That's
of course.
Gosh.
But by the way, a lot of anime it gets animated in Korea. So
yeah,
like not anime. People
Bob's
don't know.
Burgers and such. It's like animated.
Wait, I love when people tell me I hate anime, but I'm a Transformers fan. It was Japanese studios that was doing this back in the day. As we're sort of wrapping this up, I would love to hear what we talked a little bit about, like what we wish for the industry, but what do you wish for yourselves in the industry? Where do you want to go next? I know Yaya's building an empire, so I'm gonna give her a minute to think. But but Danny, where do you see your voiceover career in the anime space taking you, or where do you want to go?
I'm willing to go even further, like just any like top shonen shows, anything that, because I feel like I don't really get to do that a lot. I play a lot of kids, which is fine. It's great, doing the little girl, Brad, little sister voice. But, just to go even further, like do a lot of more shonens, do a lot of more popular shows, because I love telling these stories. I like it when people message me and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you for playing this character, I relate to her so much, she's your performance is inspiration. I'm like, yes, it's just yes. And I want to also inspire more people of color to do this, and it makes me happy seeing other POC people do it too. And I'm like, yes, let's all come together because we all can do this. And I love to see that grow even more, and just more people be in the anime community, not just watching it, but also participating with Yaya, with cosplay, or creating their own, like Sophia. Like we want to see more of that, because I feel like once that happens, that will become a better, not unit, but a better community and a better culture that brings in everybody, where no one's judged or told they can't do this or that. They can just be free to do whatever they want. So all in all, I want my career to help inspire people to do more community things and to bring more people into this culture so we can be better and tell these awesome stories. Hence why I love doing the voice work, because I love telling stories.
And you have a pandemic-proof job.
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah, all the people who are like, you must come in the studio. Do I though?
That's all of animation right now.
Exactly. So Sophia, how about you? What are your anime goals in the future?
Yeah, so my wife told me, like, let's build our own studio, and I said that's kind of impossible. Like, we're nobody, like, how will we get the money? How, like, it just seems so far away. But at the same time, I thought, you know what, hell no. Like, how many people have done this? Men, but it's it's yeah, let's build our own studio. Let's give different people the opportunity to tell their stories. Let's diversify the community, the industry, not just in animation, the arts, but also voice actors. Let's truly build a community that is more inclusive, because the bodies that form the industry are largely one type. And we also tend to hire people from a very small pool of artists, of voice actors. That's why when Onyx was happening, I was like, I want to like look for something else. And that's why I wanted to hire people of color for the voice actors, Latinx if possible. And you know, a lot of the artists I found were on Twitter, and this was their first job, and they were hungry for work, and they did an exceptional job. And you have to not even work for it to look for someone. Just stop looking here. There's a plethora of artists and talents. So yeah, like that's my long term, is to have my own studio and tell different stories and just create art.
So Yaya, I've given you time to think.
Oh, gosh.
Where will you be building your empire?
Well, I think the short-term goal is to weather the pandemic, because my job is affected
Yes.
by the pandemic. No conventions for a year. It's rough, you know, and I'm not going back until I truly feel like it's safe. I've not accepted, of course, I haven't accepted any convention invites, but I just think it's crazy that there have been certain smaller events even. I'm just like,
yeah,
no,
no, they're nuts.
especially in North America.
I had somebody literally ask me for something like, oh, we'll probably be opening up in a month. I'm like, only if I can cosplay as Master Chief. There's no way I'm going in there.
Yep. Suit up with your own, you know, air circulatory system. Yeah, I mean,
you already get sick from cons, just normal.
Exactly.
Oh my
You
gosh.
need a double time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I do really, I say this again and again, I believe cosplayers are resilient. We have adapted to the pandemic, and you know, we're online now, we're doing self shoots at home, and we are collaborating through digital means, you know, and so it's like the community is still here, but of course I want to get back to, you know, conventions and having that in-person interactions. And I mean, I have done a lot in my cosplay career, and one of the things I was really looking forward to last year was going on a book tour and promoting my book, Yaya Han's World of Cosplay, which is where I really chronicled the last 20 years of how modern cosplay shaped itself, and also how I fit in there. Like, because I started cosplaying in '99, which was right there at the beginning of like cosplay becoming this new modern, you know, version as we know it. And so I sort of like hand in hand evolved with the community. And so I just look forward to maybe having the chance to make up for that book tour and be able to connect with people that may have read the book and have in-depth conversations about it, and just make the fandom community more welcoming and accepting of people, and just share what we have in common instead of what we may not understand about each other. Just sort of really like promoting that sort of positivity. Because it's like there are a lot of issues, like there's like ageism issues, sexism issues, and you know, obviously racism issues in fandom, in cosplay. And so like I feel like with the pandemic and with sort of like the global awakening to social issues that we've had in 2020, I just would love to go back to, you know, an in-person convention environment and being able to interact with each other, and like in sort of that post 2020 environment, you know, like really translate those changes and those awakenings that we've had stuck in our homes, like translate that into real life action. So, because I mean, fandom is, you know, what's keeping us alive through all of this,
Yes.
right? So it's like we want to preserve it. Like it's worth preserving and worth fighting for the fandom community being available to as many people as possible. So that's what I want to do.
What I look forward to doing is
have a drink together.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
In person, yes.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you all for hanging out and talking with me. And I want to thank everybody who's watching. Please, let's start with you, Danny. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Once again, I'm Danny Chambers. I'm a voice actress, and you can find me on Twitter at SkinnyMini07 or Instagram at Danny D Chambers or my website at DannyDChambers.com. Woo.
Yeah, where can we find you?
My website is yayahan.com, and I am very active on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'm starting TikTok next week because I need more girls to talk to me. Because all my platforms just get like comments from guys, and I'm like, I'm joining a new platform, and I want to chat with girls.
Sophia, where can we find you?
So goodbye, Sophia Alexander, creator of Onyx Equinox. You can find me on Twitter at Sophia E. Alexander and on Instagram at Sophie.Alexander. And that's Sophie with an F, by the way.
Got it.
Not a PH.
And thank you all for joining me. I'm Karma, aka the Blurred Girl, and you can find me on Twitter. I'm basically the Blurred Girl everywhere, though. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. And I'm going to have these ladies on my show, too. So please check out the Blurred Girl Live. That's every Tuesday on Twitch and the OS Operating System Network. Thank you so much for joining me.